Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, everyone. My name is Slađana, and I'm welcoming you from Bled, Slovenia, together with my team here at CEEMAN. I'm greeting you in all parts of the day because we have managed to collect more than 250 registered participants from more than 40 countries from all over the world and many different time zones as well. This only shows that the topic of AI in education is a very hot one. So I will not make this introduction a long one. Today's session will be led by Nikos Mylonopoulos. He's our favorite guy when it comes to all things digital. He's a wonderful educator, a researcher. He does many interesting projects. And I'm kind of hoping that his favorite project is our own EdTech seminar. It's a seminar on education, on digitalization in education, which is happening this year in November here in Bled. And there we will be doing a deep dive into the topics that we are discussing today, among many others. But today we are just slightly dipping our toes into AI in education. And let's see what comes out of it. So without further ado, Nikos, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Slađana. It's always a great joy to work with the vibrant CEEMAN community. And I really can't wait to come back to Bled in November. Hello, everybody, and welcome. It's a great honor that you have joined our webinar today. Slađana is in Slovenia. My job is in Athens, Greece, but as we speak, I am located in the northeast of England. And I'm pretty sure that all of you come from the four corners of the globe, a truly global community. Let me share my screen and meanwhile also to point out that please do share your comments and questions in the Q&A pane. We have a dedicated Q&A session in the end, but if there is something that fits into the flow of my discussion, I might be able to pick it up. And I also truly look forward to engaging with the discussion, in a discussion with all of you. Okay, so as Slađana said, we're going to just dip our toes into these very exciting waters. I'm a professor of digital business at Alba Graduate Business School, the American College of Greece, and I engage a lot in subject of technology and business, not only in degree programs, but in executive education as well. Artificial intelligence is a very broad topic. It has been around for many decades, but there was about 20 years of the so-called AI winter where not much progress happened until approximately, let's say, 15, 20 years ago, when because of the big data centers and the big data that companies are able to collect, the algorithms that were being developed since many decades earlier have now yielded tremendous results. We are still at the point where our artificial intelligence systems are still described as narrow AI. They can do one job, one task, or a small set of tasks. But with the emergence of ChatGPT and similar large language models, everybody agrees that we are sort of edging closer to this notion of artificial general intelligence, which is a very controversial debate, and it is not in the scope, that debate is not in the scope of our discussion today. What is interesting, however, is that this happened suddenly as disruptive technologies tend to operate. That is, you know, a year ago, we would have said that ChatGPT is still like a decade away, and then suddenly it became reality. And we would have said that artificial general intelligence was many decades away, but suddenly everybody has this gut feeling that it may be closer. So we are experiencing in real time a sudden acceleration of technological innovation in artificial intelligence. This is something we need to remember. In terms of levels of AI, we're still in the limited AI level. So despite the awe that some of those systems inspire on us, you know, we still haven't breached those boundaries of general intelligence. Machine learning, as you know, probably is a subset of artificial intelligence, and it's a set of models and algorithms that allow our software to become intelligent in an artificial sense, without having to program specifically the cause and effect relationships or the rules of thought or some other model of explicit model of intelligence. And so we have supervised, unsupervised, reinforcement learning. These are very basic categories. There are many others. Every real world, sufficiently complex, or should I say non-trivial AI machine learning application usually involves a combination of all those three and other models if they're trying to pursue a relatively ambitious goal. Now, before I dive into specific applications in education, I should share with you two books that have been published relatively recently on the applications and potential impact of AI by the same authors. And these authors, they are academic economists, so they have a certain perspective on things. And the main argument they make is basically that artificial intelligence, as we know it today, is a machine that lowers the cost of prediction. And as soon as we formulate it in that sense in our mind, then we can start thinking about potential applications. So what is prediction good for? Prediction is good for replacing rules. We use rules and standard operating procedures in lots of things that we do, in every aspect of society, if we think about it, in order to make our world more predictable, in order to constrain and limit the complexity and unpredictability of the world. So we impose a certain degree of discipline in how we operate, how we do things. But now that we have these kinds of machines, prediction machines, then maybe we might be able to waive the rules and judge every case on its own merit. Let me give you a trivial example from our shared university experience. We have rules in the way that we allocate scholarships, right, to our students. And these rules are usually based on their GPA average or their grades. Now, we know very well that grades are a very imperfect measure of the quality and progress of a human being, of a particular individual, because we take an entire personality and we reduce them to a number, right? But it's an accepted, trusted, reliable way of organizing our university affairs, especially around scholarships, graduations, distinctions, things like that. Now, we can imagine a situation where we have a machine learning system that knows so much about the individual that the machine can evaluate them on an individual basis, per case, per individual student, and in a way which is relatively reliable. That is, if there is a bias, this bias is consistent. So there is less scope for, let's say, fraud or something like that. So the system would still be trustworthy because we understand that it is not manipulated by human agency. Of course, if we start thinking in that direction, we realize that we cannot implement such changes on their own. We have to make bigger adjustments around the way we organize our university affairs and educational activities. And this is the point of the follow-up book, Power and Prediction, by the same authors, where they're making this point that every new technological paradigm initially involved narrow applications in a narrow task, in a narrow field. But over time, as society and businesses acquired more experience, understanding what the technology is good for, then we started making systemic, broad changes in the way we organize our businesses, education, society at large. I'm not going to expand more, but this is just food for thought to point out that we are currently still at the early stages of trying to figure out, what are the assumptions that we take for granted that we can lift and replace if once we start understanding how to exploit AI, machine learning, and technologies such as ChatGPT more broadly, more effectively. Let me move on. AI in education. There are two main categories of applications here, or two main visions, if you like, right? So one category is adaptive learning and intelligent tutoring. The idea here, the vision here is really very old, but we realize that we are able to actually implement such systems today. The vision is to replace the mass education sort of factory kind of model of education that we have, where one size fits all, and we have a national education system, and every child at the same age enters primary school, and then everybody at the same age, they progress from one grade to the next until they go out of university effectively at age 22 or whatever. And then within that system, you know, we are teaching in exactly the same format, one size fits all, one curriculum, one course objective, one set of tests and exams, one course material, right? And this is the technology that we have had for more than 100 years, this for centuries now. This is the, these were the needs of the economy in terms of education. And we always aspired, and the people who had the means, the money to do that, they were able to hire expert, personal, individual tutors for their children or adults to acquire the knowledge and the skills that they wanted. Can we do that at scale? Well, it seems that the technologies that are now coming to the fore are actually delivering on this promise, which until very recently, it was more wishful thinking rather than reality. The other big category of systems is this notion of learning analytics and educational data mining. And of course, because increasingly more and more learning takes place online, it means that every learner lives behind a huge sort of shadow of data, an enormous volume of data about their online behavior with regard to learning and experiencing knowledge and exercises and the rest of it. And so there is a treasure trove. There's like a gold mine of knowledge to be had there. Perhaps the analogy that we can sort of think around this, you know, around that is the way, let's say, fitness trackers. I don't have one on my wrist right now. How do fitness trackers actually work when they give us back fitness coaching advice? They collect all the behavioral data from the fitness bracelets that millions of people are using. And then you have a machine learning algorithm that learns what it takes for different kinds of people to make progress with their fitness goals. And then that knowledge is converted into personalized advice and coaching, you know, to improve your ability to jog or whatever, swim, doesn't matter. Okay, so this is the analogy that we should be applying to education. How do we exploit the data that is increasingly being collected to learn how different kinds of people learn in different ways, and then convert that knowledge into personalized advice in adaptive and intelligent tutoring systems? And as we speak, there are hundreds of services and applications, and I wouldn't be surprised if there were actually thousands experimenting or actually delivering at a very sort of high level and mature level these kinds of services. And I've made a list of some of those here, and I'm pretty sure you are aware of many others, and there are more emerging in the market every day virtually. Clearly some of them are experiments. Some of them are more advanced and mature attempts. And evidently, big educational players, whether they are publishers, they are software providers, they're e-learning providers, or universities, they're making their own inroads in this space. Okay, let's move on. ChatGPT. Since the end of last year, during the holiday period and early this year, everybody got this shockwave of news, this new amazing new tool out there, and I'm pretty sure all of you have tried it and tested it. And we all adopted this new terminology, all right? So GPT, which stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer, is just a bunch of technical terms describing the algorithm. And it is prefixed by chat. So we have a chat interface on top of a sophisticated machine learning system. And LLM describes the architecture of the data model behind all of that, the large language model. I think the most important thing that all of us need to remember about all of those large language models is that the way they work is quite basic, right? So you have a very sophisticated system, the job of which is to predict the next best word. Okay, so given some text, given a prompt, and everything else that the GPT had already generated, the text, what is the next best word? The system is a recurrent machine learning system, as it's called, which means that every time it runs the same loop, so to speak, to guess one word, to predict one word. So it's a system of prediction, as I was saying just a moment ago, and it guesses the next best. Now, it is such a large model and so sophisticated that by predicting the next word each time, it is able to generate this wealth of sophisticated phrases in English, in Greek, in Slovenian, in every language that you can imagine, and also in code, in Python and Java, in music, in all sorts, and understand styles. It can understand, it cannot understand styles, but it can imitate styles. It can imitate a knowledgeable individual. And it's, as they say, every non-trivial technology is indistinguishable from magic. And that's the impression we get here as well. Now, because ChatGPT basically predicts one word at a time, it also produces false information. Okay, so it is not always factually accurate. As they say, it hallucinates. It's not really literally hallucinating in the way that we might, but that's the effect that we see. Okay, so if you go to ChatGPT and you ask, give me an answer to this question and give me some scholarly articles supporting this idea, very often you will find that you get references to academic papers where the authors are fictional, the paper is fictional, and the journal is fictional, right? Because that's how it works. In itself, the large language model does not have a sense of values or ethics, okay? So what OpenAI and Google and the others are doing, they're basically encapsulating ChatGPT within a layer of controls and rules that moderates the language of the model itself. And something which is common amongst all machine learning systems, it cannot explain to us how it came up with those ideas, right? It's a black box because every time it produces the next word. Now, there hasn't been a lot of research, but I found this working paper, which you can Google it, you can find it very interesting. They have done experiments and they have basically verified our suspicions. And our common suspicion is that compared to a control group of people who were given a particular task, and these are the gray bars, those who use ChatGPT spend a lot less time brainstorming, a lot less time doing the first draft, and significantly more time editing and finalizing, and right? And I'm guessing that this is more or less what most of us are doing, and I'm guessing that you would probably agree that this is a desirable way to use ChatGPT, okay? Now, at this point, I should share with you how I like to use ChatGPT. I prefer not to go to the OpenAI website. There are many ways in which you can access that system, right? Now, as we speak, there are hundreds of applications, third-party applications, and plugins that perform specialized tasks for different businesses, different areas of application, right? But if you want to use a generalized ChatGPT system, you can go to the OpenAI website, or you can go to the Bing search engine, which is now also reinforced, augmented by the ChatGPT capabilities. Or you can go under, and this is the search engine over here, or you can click on chat, and you get this capability, which is where you're speaking, so to speak, interacting directly with the with ChatGPT. You can request a more creative or a more precise response, a more factually precise response, and you can interact in the way you're familiar with. And what it does, this interface, it first does a web search, collects factual data from the web, then ChatGPT analyzes all the content from the web and formulates an answer for us. So via this interface, we get significantly more factually correct data. I prefer to use it from the Edge interface over here, because I can also use it in conjunction with documents and websites. So for example, I have like one of my papers here, my research papers, which is quite mathematical and complex. And I can do things like, let me give it a quick prompt over here. There it is. So I'm going to tell it to, I'm going to ask it to be more creative and summarize the paper, this paper, and the system will understand it's the paper on this browser page in 3 representative bullet points that will be clearly understood by my 15-year-old child. Okay, and hopefully this should work. I'm guessing that the system is quite busy, so it's taking a while at this moment in time. So I will move on, and I'll come back to that. How do we craft a better prompt? Now we have a new terminology, right? Prompt engineering. I'm not sure this is a legitimate term, but anyway, we want to use action verbs: generate, create, improve, correct. We need to provide, it's important to provide some context for, you know, for whom is this for? What is the audience? What is the purpose? All right? What is the intended goal? What are we trying to achieve? Surprisingly, ChatGPT is able to interpret intent and context and adjust its response in that way. You probably noticed that many people are using role play. Imagine you are an expert business school professional in operations management, and you want to create a course, you want to create an exam, you want to mark the student paper or whatever. Very often we need to train ChatGPT to help it sort of get in the right, on the right track, in the right direction. So it's a good idea sometimes to use referees and examples or exemplars. Do this similar to the way, all right? Or here is a sample of adjectives that we use in similar circumstances. Now give me one for my case, right? Very often we want to use double quotes to emphasize that this is like a big heading, this is like a big umbrella term, and we want everything to align under that, and you get a different response when you do that, when you use double quotes. We want to be very specific. We want, for example, to tell it we want to determine the length of the response. I want so many words, or I want so many slides, PowerPoint slides or I want so many bullet points, right? And maybe you want to tell it include prices or include, generate some questions and give me also the answers, things like that. We can also specify the tone. I want this to be professional, friendly, flirty, or yes, whatever we like. Of course, it's a chatbot, so we engage in an ongoing conversation, and the chatbot remembers what, our interaction up to now, so you don't have to repeat everything from scratch every time. You can carry on that conversation from where you left it, and it follows through. All right, so here is this. So here is the simple summary for my 15-year-old son. Okay, and perhaps and I can do more. I can demonstrate more ideas to you. So broadly speaking, ChatGPT in education, we can use it to empower students to understand and retain and drill deeper into concepts that we introduce during live teaching, perhaps, to provide personalized feedback and support, or to create more innovative content. We can get ChatGPT as an assistant to help us be more creative. Identify different ways of solving a problem, or defining a question, or approaching an answer, or explaining it. To streamline the information gathering process, so collecting data. Mauricio, I will come back to that in a moment. I don't know about you, but I use ChatGPT all the time, right? I created this presentation in collaboration with ChatGPT. A lot of the text that I'm showing here, not all of it, not all of the slides were proposed by ChatGPT. So it is an amazing tool that is helping us become more productive and get to our desired destination faster. So we always want to do a better work, right? A better job. So we start drafting things and then improving our ideas, etc. Right? Now, when we do this collaboratively with a friend of ours, our colleagues, we are always more productive. But unfortunately, we don't have access to our friends, our colleagues all of the time. A lot of the time we work individually. This is what our job is like, for better or worse, as academics. Okay? But now we have a trusted colleague and are at our fingertips all of the time. All right? To draft essays, or to revise, or to improve a draft. So let me demo some more ideas for you. Mauricio and everybody else, I am using the Edge browser, which has this pane over here embedded, and ChatGPT is in here. There's also another sort of facility which exploits ChatGPT to produce a paragraph, an email, a blog post, or to do brainstorming. And you can sort of moderate, the length or the tone and all kinds of things. Most of the time, I use the raw chat, which, as I said, relies on a Google, on a web search, Bing search. Therefore, it is factually more reliable. And whatever you have in the main browser window over here, you can tell ChatGPT to ignore it, or you can tell it to use it. All right. So I can load a document. For example, here I have a student paper. Okay, one of my courses is an actual student paper. And I can ask ChatGPT to grade it. Now, you may have noticed that ChatGPT doesn't respond in the same way all of the time. So I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen right now. But here it is. Here is a short prompt. I'm going to clean up the dialogue because I'm starting a new conversation. And I'm going to paste this. My MBA students were given the following instructions: mark the student report on this web page context on a scale from 0 to 4, and generate summative feedback. Give grade points for analysis effort, insight, originality, appropriate use of chart types, presentation, coherence of text and data, and overall good use of analytics tools. Okay, let's see what happens. Sometimes I get a response that says, this is not my job, this is your job, you should be doing that, right? And not exactly in those words. But now it seems it is actually doing what I told it. Based on the current web page context, I would give the student report a grade of 2 out of 4 and the following feedback. And there is a lot of very sort of interesting feedback, which of course I'm not going to copy paste that feedback to the student. I'm going to pay attention to that feedback, moderate it, make it my own, and then return to the student. To be honest with you, let me be honest with you, I have not so far in my teaching used ChatGPT to grade reports or to generate feedback. I am experimenting, though, for my own, let's say, advancement and understanding to see how far I can go with this. And as you can see, it can do tremendous work with a very short prompt. I could give it a much bigger prompt. All right, and I have done that in the past, so I can try this here, for example, which I'm not going to read for you, but this is this very long prompt over here is you see, a very long prompt is the instructions that I have given to my students for that assignment. So it's the entire set of instructions, and ChatGPT typically responds by adjusting its feedback to the instructions that I have given it. There it is. It's going on with that. Okay, let me move back to my presentation. We use ChatGPT for research, right? To do literature research, we have to be careful with that, as I said, because they hallucinate. To clarify concepts and constructs as we read new literature, and we're uncertain how is that concept different to that concept. Devising measurement, this is fantastic. I don't know if you've tried that. To brainstorm measurement items if you're doing a survey. Now, this is a kind of a tricky thing because your measurement items come from the literature. But if you're generating new theory, it's an interesting starting point, right? It's like having a collaborator sort of bouncing ideas with you. Producing early drafts, especially literature review, etc., etc. Now, all journals have banned, as a matter of editorial policy, using ChatGPT as a co-author or a reference, right? So it is our sort of moral responsibility as scholars to use the tools in a responsible way as sources of ideas, as sources of brainstorming, as sources of early drafts, etc. Okay. So I can perhaps give you a demo of that. Now, look, this time ChatGPT gave me an even longer set of feedback from my student. Let me clear this conversation. And I will sort of move to a sort of blank page to prevent it from using the document. Let's see, what do I have here? Oh, all right, there you go. Okay, there you go. So, as a seasoned scholarly researcher, devised 10 measurement items representing the concept of joy of missing out in the context of social media. These measurement items will be used in a survey questionnaire formulated as Likert type questions. So this is an exploratory question. Obviously, I am surveying the literature and I am using theory, but I am also, simultaneously playing around with ChatGPT to experiment to see, what it can do, how far it can go. So it started by saying the current web page is not relevant to your request, so I will ignore that, and I will proceed with measurement items. Notice that I have given it a context, a purpose, and I have been specific in my request, asking for 10 measurement items, and 10 I get, right? And so I have done this, and I can follow up with a follow-up question saying, what factors are expected to emerge among those items? So this is, normally we don't work this way in research, right? So this is a kind of a hack, a bottom-up way of doing it. But it's an experiment, right? And there it goes. It produces legitimate insights, self-esteem, autonomy, what else is coming up, and well-being. Honestly, last time I tried exactly the same prompts, I got different answers. So we always need to be careful. We always need to be careful. All right. Let me move on with my presentation. We can use ChatGPT to facilitate discussion with our students, to generate questions, to generate questions for discussion, to generate questions for an exam, to produce answers, model answers for our exams if it's required, to simulate a dialogue, to summarize a document like I showed you earlier with that paper. So if I go back to that paper of mine, which is, as I said, pretty mathematical and complicated. And again, I want to clear this conversation. And I want to ask, there it is. One of the summary points that it produced earlier on was about this. So I'm asking a follow-up question. Explain the method used in the paper to examine whether online lending mitigated credit distress in local markets affected by bank mergers. Okay, so this is a sentence from the feedback that I got from ChatGPT earlier. And now I expect it to give me a summary of a relatively convoluted methodological part of that paper. And last time I checked, it was accurate. All right, let me go back to the presentation and return to that later on. We talked about personalized learning. How can we imagine ChatGPT as we exploit its capabilities, help personalize learning? Well, we can start, understanding the profile of each individual student as an individual person rather than a member of a class or of a cohort, right? And then we can follow up with adapting the content to the progress that the student is making. We can recommend supplementary material, act as a personal tutor, all right? Or develop a different pathway for achieving the same learning objective depending on the needs and aspirations of different students. Now, of course, we have all kinds of pedagogical issues that we would like ChatGPT to help us address, like how can educators design and evaluate learning outcomes? How can we detect and prevent cheating and plagiarism, which is, capturing the head the first thing that everybody thought of when ChatGPT came around was that it's the end of authentic coursework, right? Learning design and delivery. How can we integrate ChatGPT into the way that we deliver the courses and get our students to engage collaboratively with ChatGPT as part of how we teach, how we engage and motivate students, and how we provide guidance. And then what I did, I asked ChatGPT, okay, now that ChatGPT produced those questions, I then asked ChatGPT, give me your answers. And these are the answers, all right? So we need to move toward more open-ended and complex tasks rather than rote repetition in our assignments. There are tools like Turnitin and Copyscape that detect plagiarism using AI tools. We can use ChatGPT to generate, to help us structure, do the scaffolding of our interaction, our Socratic method. We can use ChatGPT to actually generate exercises, stories, scenarios, simulations, dialogues, right? And in fact, we can ask ChatGPT to produce motivational feedback and other such input to our educational process. So here it is. Here's the answer. According to the current web page context, the authors used a difference quasi-experimental design to examine whether online lending mitigated credit distress in local markets affected by bank mergers. They did this by comparing So it's a very precise, correct, but also accessible and very brief summary of what this paper does, and simple prompt, which is helping me, whether I am an academic researcher trying to enter a new area that I don't understand so well, or whether I am a student and I don't understand this paper that my professor asked me to read and perhaps write some kind of exam on that, right? And so this is a tremendous assistant to my learning, my study, my progress. Well, I have a few more examples to show you. Let's see what I have here. Here's an interesting one. Look, suppose, I don't know, here's a fictional exercise, all right? Again, let me clear this conversation and paste this. Here's a fictional exercise. I don't know the context where it might be useful in your case, but here it is. How do this year's Oscar winners correlate with box office earnings? Give me examples of, first, films that won an Oscar and earned top dollar. 2, films that won an Oscar but earned very little. 3, films that did not win an Oscar and earned a lot. And 4th, films that did not win an Oscar and earned very little. Include box office earnings for each film, okay? And look, it produces data because it uses web search, it produces data. Now I have, and you can understand already now that what I have in the back of my mind is a 2x2 matrix, which classifies things, right? And then I have tried to ask it to actually generate that 2x2 matrix, and it cannot, all right? ChatGPT can produce images, but these images, they have a certain degree of abstraction. They can look realistic, but they have a certain degree of abstraction. Oh my God, here's a table. I hadn't seen this before, honestly. I have tried this prompt several times, but this table, first time. Okay, so surprise, pleasant surprise. There you go. So we have the categories that I asked for, the 4 quadrants, the film, the Oscars won, and the box office earnings. And I have my data, and I can go teach now. I can go do a presentation, whatever. Yes. Here's another example. Let me, I mean, on this interface, you can produce images, right? So I could say generate a yawning cat driving a Tesla car, show all of the car. Okay. Now this now connects to DAL-E, which is the image generating AI by OpenAI, collaborates with that system and brings this over here, right? I'll try to create it for you. It is taking a while. Let's see. And it gives me prompts, what else I can do to follow up, yeah? So I have different photos here that look pretty realistic. Here is one, here's another. Here's a cartoon, okay? I could specify the style. I could ask it to be more like a photograph or more like a cartoon. And I have follow-up prompts here for every query that I make, yeah, that I could use. But I could give you just another example very quickly. Here is something I did actually for my work yesterday. So I want to improve. So it says here, the following text is a summary of a public speech that an expert professor of operations management will deliver to an audience of senior business executives. Revise the text with the goal to attract the greatest number of participants. Here is the text. And then I copy the text that I have, put it there, and ChatGPT rephrases in a very original way what I have written to make it more catchy, more, you know, from a marketing communications point of view, more attractive. It starts by recognizing that this is not related to what is going on the web page, and okay, now this is a surprise. I don't want to waste more time here. I need to know more about your purpose and audience. What are the main points you want to convey to the senior business executives? What are the benefits? Okay. Honestly, last time I did it exactly this way and it worked. Now it needs more hand-holding, more interaction. As I said earlier, this is very common. I would rather move on with our discussion because time is of the essence. What else is there? Okay, well, the Plus subscription on the OpenAI website gives you faster response, greater system availability, access to GPT-4. By the way, the system behind this interface is actually GPT-4, not GPT 3.5 that you get on the free version on the OpenAI website, okay? But even though the engine is GPT-4, it does not give you all the functionality that the Plus subscription offers. For example, with a Plus subscription, you can submit an image and you can ask it to interpret that image and do something with that image, okay? Search on the base of that image, etc. There are hundreds of plugins. Those plugins, they connect to other applications and interact with other applications. So ChatGPT can use, exploit on your behalf the capabilities of other systems. And you can imagine that this is very exciting and very interesting and potentially very useful, but also potentially very scary if somehow ChatGPT takes control of your, I don't know, of your security cameras at home or of your Wi-Fi front lock on your front door or something like that. It is very easy to develop our own applications and plugins on using the playground and the platform that they have here. So this is platform.openai.com, and you have tutorials and examples. And of course, this is what OpenAI does for us on the web and on YouTube and on social media. There are many, many, many other sources. ChatGPT speaks English and French and all those languages, but it also speaks code. So we can write code in the Plus version of ChatGPT. And we expect Microsoft to launch ChatGPT branded as Copilot inside all the Office 365 applications in their enterprise systems, database systems, Azure Cloud, Microsoft Dynamics. And so we imagine that every software tool that we use will be empowered with the capabilities of GPT. Now, I should mention that I've been focusing on OpenAI and Microsoft. Every large technology company is working the same direction. Google does, NVIDIA, Facebook, and many, many others. So Microsoft and OpenAI have been, earlier to go public to the general consumer audience with this. So this is the example that we're using, but I'm not partial to Microsoft. They're not paying me. I don't have Microsoft stock. So I am indifferent amongst all those companies. And I would like to conclude and get your questions. I don't see many questions in the Q&A. So if you have some, please do post them. I would like to conclude with this thought and then ask you to participate in a survey. 70 years ago, Pablo Picasso reacted with this famous phrase: computers are useless. They can only give you answers. And this is very pertinent today because ChatGPT has tremendous power to give us answers, right? And so we are forced now to become a lot smarter about the way in which we ask the questions, because now we face the following risk, that we fall into the trap of taking what ChatGPT and all those systems and social media platforms and everything else, what they're telling us as true. But we have huge blind spots. And I'm reminded of Johari's window model, where we have the open window of the things that we know and everybody knows, the things that we know, but everybody else doesn't know, the hidden window. We have the blind window, things that everybody else can see, but we are blind to those things. And also the unknown unknowns, okay? So with systems like ChatGPT, we need to be much more self-conscious about what am I reading now? What is it telling me? What is it not telling me? What do I not know that I don't know? And I need to follow up with a follow-up question, which is phrased differently in order to shed like a floodlight on aspects that may be hidden in this conversation. And so what I think ChatGPT is doing, it is helping us become much more smart and sophisticated. Now, I would like the help of Vlado and Slajana to share a very brief poll survey that I have created. I need to find it first. To get your opinions. And share the results with everybody. How are we going to do that? Can I post it on a chat window or somewhere?
Vlado, can you help us, please?
You can post it on chat, yes.
Fantastic. All right, so everybody go to the chat window, follow this link, and I will show you right away the results as they are coming in. It's a very short poll about your opinion and your experience with ChatGPT. Meanwhile, I'm also expecting your questions and comments and opinions on the Q&A window.
I think you have a couple of questions. Irina, she's asking, could we rely on information like given in a table about the films? Will there be a source of it?
That's a very good question. Let's see, did we get a source on that answer? So very often, let me repeat that prompt. That's a very good question. Where is it? Okay, here it is. Now, most of the time, I have noticed that ChatGPT, without me asking it, it gives me the sources as footnotes, and it's actually very good at that. But in this case, add the sources of information, just to make sure. Okay, and as you say, Irina, indeed, it's then my responsibility, it's up to me to verify that it's not hallucinating. But I feel a little bit more comfortable because I know that this system first does a web search. Okay, you see the format of this response now is different. It's not a table. I should have asked for a table. And here are the notice down below, the sources and the footnotes, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the footnotes, they're all over here. And I can show you how that works once it's done. Okay, so here is a little notepad window over here. And oh, it's still carrying on. Let me try the other question. Nikos, you talked about being able to create student feedback from ChatGPT, which you said you had played with but not actually used for giving student feedback. Can I ask why not? Was this ethical or practical issues with feedback? You also mentioned creating learning outcomes. In class. Yes. Yes, Gabi. We do not have a policy in my university for that. Well, there is an ethical issue because I am the professor, not ChatGPT. So I do see an ethical question there. I'm not a philosopher, I'm not an ethicist, but I do see a problem there. Therefore, whatever ChatGPT does in the format of teaching that I deliver, I want to make sure that first I make it mine. I read it, check it, change it. Now, having said that, I was having a discussion just an hour ago with my colleagues. How do we increase the productivity of our online programs to make them more scalable? Because we want to hire more tutors to support the discussions, the online discussions and interactions with students. And the discussion was, we should be using ChatGPT to do that sort of thing, because it's basically giving feedback to within a well-defined body of knowledge. So you give students to discuss a case study or an exercise or a piece or a research paper, and then they go into a chat room and they discuss, right? And then you want somebody to provide feedback on the discussion on what the students are saying. And I can imagine that I can create an app where I feed ChatGPT with the relevant content, which is very easy to do nowadays. All right, and then ask ChatGPT to provide personalized feedback on each one of those entries, which for a professor, for an academic, is extremely time-consuming. In that context, because the setting and the model of learning is such, I would actually trust it to do so, and the students would know that it's not a person giving them feedback; it's a machine. All right, so the expectations are clear and therefore fair. In the context of my traditional teaching, I must make the feedback mine. Creating learning outcomes. Indeed, last night, I was working on developing a new course, and I thought, why not? Let's see what ChatGPT has to say. Frankly, I was not impressed. ChatGPT was not very creative. It did not do very well, and I did not follow up. I mean, normally I should try with a different prompt, with a different approach, but I didn't. Okay, maybe I should have given it some examples, as I said earlier, but maybe another time. Now, notice here that you get lots of, I'm returning back to the screen that I'm sharing, that you get lots of sources for this exercise. And when I copy from here, and then I put it on this editor, I get all the text at the top with the superscript over there. I don't know if you can see that clearly.
Nikos, I think we have a raised hand.
Okay, yeah. And let me answer this. And at the bottom, it says sources of information, and you have all the footnotes over here. And the sources, conversation with Bing, the 25th of May, 2023, full list of winners, and you have all the URLs and everything is here. And sometimes there will be URLs, sometimes there will be newspapers or even academic papers. And if you want to improve the precision, the accuracy, you go back to a new discussion and you choose more precise, more creative, more precise. This is a parameter in the machine learning algorithm, which machine learning data scientists, they call it temperature, okay? Higher temperature, more creativity, more imagination, lower temperature, greater precision. All right. Yeah, I didn't see the raised hand, so please do.
Just a second, please. In the meantime, there are a couple of questions also in Q&A that have been now that showed up.
What link leads to the AI in creating? Andre, I'm not sure what you mean. I can imagine asking ChatGPT, give me an outline structure for a poster given this topic and this material. I can imagine. So let me tell you how I created, how I got assistance from ChatGPT to create this PowerPoint and many other PowerPoints. I give it a topic and a sort of summary, and I ask ChatGPT to create an outline of so many slides. I say, I want so many slides, and gives me an outline. And for each outline, I get like bullet point, like a summary, what should go into each slide. And then I choose which of those slides I want. And I ask, okay, now generate detailed content for this slide. And then create detailed content for that slide. And some of them I reject, I throw away, and then I create my own slides. And so I proceed in a more interactive way. And this is how I would do this poster. Now, if Andre, you're talking about the creative sort of layout, the image of that poster, I am not aware of a tool that can do that, but I'm pretty sure that such tools exist that are using tools like, I don't know, Adobe publishing tools or other tools, and combine them with ChatGPT to create that kind of capability. But I haven't come across one of them. Okay, so these are third-party apps that connect to the ChatGPT API, application programming interface, to combine the capabilities of ChatGPT with the capabilities of other software tools to produce a solution. Rusudan, yes, there is a paid version. If that works here, let's see.
Nikos, I think the question was if this, what you are using is a paid version.
No, I'm sorry. Yes, no, it's not a paid version. It's not I'm using the free version. So on purpose, we're using the free version, which is accessible to everybody. The advanced features are coming up in November at the EdTech seminar. Okay.
And also, I think we have Sonia, who raised the hand. So maybe if we can let her ask her question or make a comment. Do you agree, Nikos?
Yes, please do go ahead.
Sonia, are you with us? Sonia? Sonia, if you are with us, please unmute. And if you have a question or a comment, we will gladly take it. Yes.
Sorry, I don't have a question. That was an accident. I think the presentation was very clear, and I first have to digest all the information.
Okay, so let me share with you your responses to our little survey. How often do you use ChatGPT? Most people never or seldom, and very few people frequently. And those who use it, they use it in research. About what is it? Nearly 40% of you use it occasionally or sometime for research. About 15% or a little bit more use it. The 18% use it for in teaching preparation. What do you use it for? Number one, draft texts. Yes, we all do that. Number two, explain and understand concepts. Indeed, we need to be careful here with the veracity, the accuracy, the precision. Yes, and other uses. And please do share in chat what other uses you have in mind. Refine and improve texts comes fourth. How difficult do you find it? All right, so we have like a 50-50 split here, if I understand correctly, more or less. Yes. So something like 40% find it difficult to learn how to make better use of it. And something like 40%, again, find it difficult to make productive use of it. It takes a lot of trial and error. You know, all of us need to invest time. And the more time we invest in it, the more time we need to invest to get to the next level, to the more advanced features and so on. How pessimistic or optimistic are you about the impact of AI on responses keep coming in? That's why it's refreshing. On the quality of education delivered. So the majority of you are optimistic, and about 20% of you are rather slightly pessimistic. On your job, all of us are optimistic with the exception of 13%, and 32% neither, neutral. Okay, so there's a big neutral group in all of these questions, in all of these answers. On whether students will be equipped with the knowledge and skills to do well in their future work. All right, so responses now are more evenly distributed between pessimistic and optimistic. And I agree, we're all skeptical about that. How about cheating in assignments? Now, this is almost like, well, we have a majority of pessimism here, as I can see, slight majority of pessimism. I think the challenge is on us. We need to move away from assignments as we know them. We need to reinvent how we verify that students have learned. We will also pretty soon, I'm confident, it's an intuition of mine, not like an analytical conclusion, an intuition of mine that we will abandon the grade system, okay? But as I said, this will be a much bigger systemic change, and it's not going to come very soon. Does your University of Business School have a formal policy on the use of ChatGPT by students? No, 68%, nearly 70% no. We do have 13% or 4 responses, 4 people who said yes. That's very interesting. What is the best part of using ChatGPT? 4 respondents. The best part, using it to improve education for students. I don't use it generating content. Also, we have 30 respondents. Drafting is the big one in this word cloud. Saves me time, ideas, brainstorming. Indeed. Precision is smaller, but there it is. Precise results, precise reference. Very interesting. What is the worst part? Directly copied answers from ChatGPT in essays from students. Yes, this is very sad. I mean, they don't even delete the top part that says, you know, the human aspect, the ethical and human aspect, it's a broader philosophical question, which has become very urgent, very imminent. Use of brains. Well, yes, use of brains, but everybody brings up the story with calculators. You know, once upon a time, calculators, electrical calculators, you know, were the big enemy of maths teaching at schools. But we figured it out, haven't we? Use the miracle tool. Yes, true. I mean, I assume you mean to say that we are ascribing it with more capability than it actually has. And I agree, we need to be careful with that. We need to be careful with phrasing questions, careful with wrong answers. higher ups. I'm not sure what you mean. Okay, very interesting. We will study those results, and Slađana, maybe we can produce like a short summary report. And
yes, we will definitely produce a short summary report. Also, I want to mention that the presentation and the recording as well will be shared. And considering the time, Nikos, I think it would be good if we take one last question. I have one in Q&A from our dear friend Alexandru. He's been here to Bled for our seminars as well. So maybe we can take his question and then slowly wrap it up. And just before we do that, I would just like to mention, some of you were asking about the presentations and such. You need to know that there are thousands of AI tools out there. Just recently, I ran into a website called, let me see, because I took a screenshot. It's called topai.tools. There, for example, I was searching for education. If you click on the education, it gives you in a matter of seconds 115 tools that you can use, that you can play around. So this is something that you need to take your time and explore on your own. But like Nikos said, with the certain things, we will definitely be deep diving in during our EdTech seminar. So if we go to the question from Alexandru, he's asking, what are your thoughts on the control of the data and info that you input in order to receive responses? OpenAI seems to store all prompts and use them in further development. What if a doctor inputs sensitive health information? What if you do brainstorming based on confidential company data or information that you hope will generate a patent?
Right. So Microsoft has already announced that they are launching a version of Copilot that will work with enterprise data. So imagine you are like a commercial company, like a retailer, and you can connect GPT, branded as Copilot, to all your business data, customer data, financial data, sales data, product data, inventory, supply chain. And then your employees use that to manage the business, right? Presumably, these are private, protected, secure data, and the system architecture is such that protects it. So none of us should use protected information in prompts in the public versions of ChatGPT. We should all be careful about that, in the same way that we don't give away our credit card information to anybody.
Thank you, Nikos. Now, like Sonia mentioned, we need to process all this information. You gave us so much that my initial thoughts are, wow, I need to watch and rewatch and make some notes and then try and search and explore and, you know, try to make the best of it. Any final thoughts?
Well, I cannot forget this phrase by Picasso, this quotation. We get answers, we get lots of answers. Our responsibility now is to shed a floodlight on all those blind spots and learn to ask better questions. And I think this is much more important than meets the eye. If you look at all this discussion about fake news, disinformation, social media, etc., the same principle applies there. We need to be careful how we consume information in this tsunami of information space that we live into. And ChatGPT makes this more urgent, but it is the greatest challenge of this information age, this digital age that we live in.
Nikos, thank you for taking time in your busy schedule to be with us, to share your knowledge, to share your experience and your experiments as well with us. Thank you to all the participants who are here with us, who have been staying with us till the very end. And like I mentioned before, the recording, the presentation, and the results of the survey will be shared with you. Thank you very much and hope to see you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you all.